first at 9, this Wednesday, the 3rd of July 2024. Partnership and cooperation. Japan expresses intention to recommence yen loans for halted projects. Expresses interest in deepening Sri Lanka-Japan maritime cooperation. Challenged. Petition filed before the Supreme Court seeking an order to postpone the calling of the presidential election. Zero tolerance. President vows stern action against those who disrupt education. Aviation sector reforms. Mattala Airport management to be handed over to a Russo-India joint venture soon, reveals the aviation minister. Says Sri Lanka is yet to find an investor for Sri Lankan Airlines. Revenue up. Sri Lanka's excise department's revenue increased by 20% in the first 5 months of the year to 105 billion rupees.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
මේ වෙලාවේ රනිල් තමයි.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, and in your top story tonight, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa has expressed her country's interest in further supporting Sri Lanka's development by promptly resuming yen loans for existing projects once the Memorandum of Understanding on Debt Restructuring is signed. This was conveyed by the Japanese Foreign Minister during her meeting with her Sri Lankan counterpart Ali Sabri in Tokyo. While commending the measures taken by the Sri Lankan government on national reconciliation, the Japanese Foreign Minister said that a stable relationship between the Sri Lankan government and the northern and eastern provinces will have a positive impact on the country's economic growth due to the enhancement of investment environment for overseas businesses.
Sri Lankan Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Council Ali Sabri met with Japanese Minister of Foreign Affairs Yoko Kamikawa in Tokyo yesterday. While commending the efforts taken by President Wickremesinghe's government in addressing debt issues, the Japanese Foreign Minister welcomed the final agreement reached between the Official Creditor Committee and Sri Lanka on the Memorandum of Understanding on Debt Restructuring. She expressed hope for the implementation of debt restructuring with other creditor countries and private creditors in a transparent and comparable manner. Minister Kamikawa also expressed Japan's intention to further support Sri Lanka's development by promptly resuming Indian loans for existing projects once the MOU on debt restructuring is signed. In response, Minister Sabri, who explained the current situation regarding the process of signing the MOU and the future outlook regarding debt restructuring, said that he will proceed with the necessary measures in order to realize the resumption of yen loans for existing projects at the earliest opportunity. On the topic of national reconciliation, the Japanese Foreign Minister commended the progress made through concrete efforts by the Sri Lankan government and added that a stable relationship between the Sri Lankan government and the northern and eastern provinces will have a positive impact on the country's economic growth due to the enhancement of the investment environment for overseas companies, including Japanese businesses. Taking Sri Lanka's strategic importance due to its location on the sea lane between Africa and the Pacific into account, Foreign Minister Kamikawa said her country aims to further strengthen cooperation with Sri Lanka in the maritime sector. Minister Sabri meanwhile said that Sri Lanka, as a peace-loving maritime nation, will continue to cooperate with various countries and contribute to the peace and stability in the Indian Ocean. In another meeting, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister met former Japanese Prime Minister Fukuda Yasuo and held discussions on modalities of improving the Sri Lanka-Japan bilateral relationship, particularly in the economic sector, and sourcing more Japanese investment for the country. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Sabri also held a meeting with senior management of the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, also known as JICA. Talks were held on issues related to the immediate resumption of suspended projects by doing away with formalities. According to Minister Sabri, the JICA expressed its appreciation for President Ranil Wickremesinghe's efforts to strengthen the Sri Lankan economy.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Now, meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has stressed the necessity for educators to dedicate themselves for the betterment of the future generation, adding that a country's education system cannot thrive without proper discipline. Addressing an event at Temple Trees, the head of state assured that measures will be taken against those who directly or indirectly disrupt school education and highlighted the need for consistency in academic activities. Wickramasinghe presided over an appointment ceremony at Temple Trees this morning, where appointments were awarded to officers of the Education Administrative Service as well as teaching appointments to graduates and diploma holders. Appointments were awarded to 60 officials of the Education Administrative Service, while teaching appointments were awarded to 1,706 graduates and 453 English diploma holders.
මම මේ මාසේ සහභාගී වුණා Commonwealth Education Ministers Conference.
I attended the Commonwealth Education Ministers Conference in May. The main topics of discussion included digitalization, artificial intelligence and climate change. However, in Sri Lanka, schools remain closed while teachers are protesting over salary discrepancies. During the 2-year-long COVID-19 pandemic, schools were only functional for a limited period of time. However, teachers received their full salaries during those 2 years. The children of some of these teachers who are engaging in protests are receiving education at these same schools. The education too is being affected by these protests. Aren't these protesting teachers at least concerned about their own children's education?
The education service cannot function without discipline. Strikes initiated in schools are detrimental and unreasonable. In 2022, under President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's administration, teachers were the only professionals who received a salary increase. This year, we provided an allowance of 10,000 rupees to all government employees. Teachers received such allowances on 2 occasions. Even after receiving these allowances, they initiated a trade union action, refusing to report to work. Then they extended the strike for a second day without any prior notice. This caused a severe inconvenience to students. Government school students studying in Sinhala medium were affected the most. I was informed that this situation did not prevail in Tamil and Muslim schools. Similarly, academic activities continued in both international and private schools. What did these protesters do? They disrupted academic activities in all Sinhala medium schools. Teachers in several schools were threatened not to report to work. We should not let such things continue in future. No one should be allowed to directly or indirectly disrupt school education from 7:30 am to 1:30 pm. I have requested the Attorney General to propose measures regarding this issue. It is imperative that children's education is not disrupted by school closure or strikes. Moving forward, we will take stronger actions on this front. I even told the Chief Prelate of the Malwatu chapter that if the need arises, we will impose emergency regulations to ensure that schools remain functional.
Horizon Campus 2024 intake. Register now.
A fundamental rights petition has been filed before the Supreme Court seeking an order preventing the calling of a presidential election until the court delivers its interpretation on the date of the presidential poll. The petition was filed by an entrepreneur named C.D. Lenever.
Through the petition, the petitioner stated that an ambiguity has been created regarding the tenure of the president under the 19th Amendment. The petitioner points out that the government in 2015 failed to refer the amendment on reducing the term of office of the incumbent president to 5 years to a referendum. The petitioner pointed out that, as per Article 82 of the Constitution, the government has failed to pass the amendment introduced to Article 32 due to their failure to refer the matter to a referendum, thereby creating an uncertainty as to whether the president's term of office will end in 5 or 6 years. As a result, the petitioner has requested an interim order preventing the holding of the presidential election until the court gives a clear interpretation regarding the date on which the president's term of office concludes.
Star Dishwasher Dali Hell Indul Pahasuwen Sede. Star Dishwasher Magic Tub එක.
Meanwhile, independent parliamentarian and member of the Freedom People's Congress, Professor G.L.P. says the Samaki Jana Balawegaya and its alliance, which they represent, have decided to intervene in this Supreme Court petition filed seeking an order preventing the calling of a presidential election. Meanwhile, leader of the National People's Power, Anurakumara Disanayake, said his party will take the necessary steps to defeat the petition in the Supreme Court.
අද දවසේ අපිට පේනවා නිත්‍යානුකූලව ව්‍යවස්ථානුකූලව
What we can see is that attempts are being made to postpone the presidential election. We see these as constitutional violations. I do not know why attempts are made to sabotage the presidential election and breach the public right to elect a president. At a time when attempts are being made to prevent the holding of a presidential election, I request the responsible officials to not let the country's democracy die.
මේ රටේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ මළගම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට කටයුතු කරන්න එපා.
මේ විදිහම උත්සාහයක් කරන්නට යෙදුනා එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ.
Earlier, UNP General Secretary Palitharangi Bandara made an attempt to postpone the election. The attempt that was made this morning is similar to the previous one. We have decided to intervene in this case. As the Samaki Jana Balawege and its alliance, we will represent this case as an intervener and express our stance to the court.
අපේ ස්ථාවරය ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමට අපි තීරණය කරලා තිබෙනවා.
රුජු ආණ්ඩුවේ මැදිහත්වීම මත
A petition with government support was filed before the Supreme Court, seeking an interim order to be issued against the Election Commission preventing the calling of the election. We do not believe that Ranil Wickremesinghe's tenure can be extended by another year. We believe that this attempt to postpone the election can be defeated in court. We have decided to intervene in this matter.
අතුරු පාර්ශ්වයක් ලෙස අපි මැදිහත් වෙන දැනට තීරණය කළා තිබෙනවා.
Now, meanwhile, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Duminda Disanayake, says that MP Dayasiri Jayasekara's SLFP membership will remain suspended. This comes against the backdrop where an injunction was issued revoking the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's decision to oust its former General Secretary Dayasiri Jayasekara from his position and to suspend his party membership. The Colombo District Court issued an interim order revoking the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's decision to dismiss MP Dayasiri Jayasekara from party membership and the position of General Secretary. Colombo Additional District Judge Aruna Wickremesinghe issued this order after considering a petition filed by MP Jayasekara.
I have always believed that the truth will win in the end. The district judge ordered that the SLFP's decision to expel me from party membership and the position of General Secretary be temporarily suspended until the conclusion of the relevant case. Accordingly, I will be reinstated as the SLFP's General Secretary.
Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva is currently serving as the chairman of the party, while Duminda Disanayake serves as the party's General Secretary. However, as per the court order, Dayasiri Jayasekara's party membership and General Secretary position will be reinstated. Addressing a media briefing today, the SLFP's General Secretary, Duminda Disanayake, revealed that Jayasekara's party membership was temporarily suspended due to the allegations of leading another political alliance outside the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
A new committee of officials has been appointed to the SLFP pursuant to the provisions of the party's constitution. Since the relevant case is a dispute with former President Maithripala Sirisena, it will not affect the party's new executive committee. Therefore, his party membership will remain temporarily suspended. I will read his statement as a proof. Your SLFP membership will be temporarily suspended as a result of launching Humane People's Alliance, a coalition of small political parties and civil organizations with the aim of contesting for upcoming elections.
Now, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa pledges to convert every school in Sri Lanka into a smart school in the near future under the Samaki Jana Balawege's Sakwala program. He made this statement while attending an event in Polonnaruwa yesterday.
The 279th edition of the Sakwala program was held at Nagapokuna Junior School in Polonnaruwa under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. In every developed country, classrooms have been transformed into smart classrooms. We must support programs that protect children and strengthen them. There are 10,096 schools in the country. We assure you that we will make all those schools smart schools in the future. Through this program, we aim to create smart citizens and in turn, build a smart country. I request one thing from society. Instead of being jealous, selfish or vindictive, I invite you to join me in this endeavor. We are achieving all of this without holding any power.
Now, several strikes and protest actions were initiated across Colombo today, urging the government to address a number of issues. The ongoing trade union actions inconvenienced the public and disrupted commercial activities.
The Joint Administrative Officers Union launched a token strike action today by reporting in sick, demanding solutions to a number of issues. Later, union members engaged in a protest in front of the Ministry of Public Administration and Management. In the meantime, patients were inconvenienced due to a strike action organized by government Ayurvedic doctors over several demands. Concurrently, customs unions today protested against the amendments which are to be brought to the customs ordinance. The unions alleged that there is a plan to merge Sri Lanka Customs, the Inland Revenue Department and the Excise Department and hand over their powers to a private entity. As a result, the customs unions engaged in a work to rule campaign inconveniencing the small-scale industrialists.
දිනකට බහලුම් 17,500ත් අතර ප්‍රමාණයක් කොළඹ වරායෙන් පිටතට ගැනීමට තිබුණා. මුත් මේ වෙනකොට බහලුම් 300කට වගේ ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් තමයි කොළඹ වරාය පරිශ්‍රයෙන් පිටතට ගැනීමක් සිදු වෙන්නේ.
The individuals who launched this strike have no idea about the country's economic status. Such measures taken without considering the current situation will not benefit anyone.
Meanwhile, the trade union action initiated by the non-academic staff of several state universities continued for the 62nd consecutive day, disrupting university operations. Despite this ongoing trade union action, the University of Runa has taken steps to continue the university's activities as normal, including academic activities and examinations.
Now, 2 teenagers, both aged 15, were reported dead after falling from the 67th floor of an apartment complex in Kompanividya last evening. The 2 teenagers were discovered to have entered the gym on the 5th floor of the apartment complex after school, where they left their belongings. Police investigation revealed that they had reached the 67th floor of the building via the staircase outside the gym. Preliminary investigations have revealed that both individuals were students of an international school in Colombo and were residents of the Vallavatta and Kalaniya areas. Meanwhile, the bodies of the deceased have been sent to the Colombo National Hospital for a post-mortem examination. Now, the late R. Sampanthan's remains, which were placed in a funeral parlour in Borella, were brought to the parliamentary premises this afternoon. At the Parliament, political party leaders, parliamentary staff, ambassadors, government officials and relatives of the late R. Sampanthan paid their final respects to the late leader. Following public honours at the parliamentary complex, the remains of the late R. Sampanthan will be taken to Trincomalee. The funeral of the late leader is scheduled to be held in Trincomalee on Sunday, the 7th of July. Meanwhile, Kadiravelu Sanmugam has been nominated to fill the parliamentary seat left vacant by the passing of the former TNA leader. According to Election Commission, Kudasan will represent the Trincomalee electoral division in the 9th Parliament. The relevant Gazette notification confirming his appointment has been issued. Welcome back. Now in business news, Sri Lanka will hand over the Mattala International Airport to a Russo-Indian consortium within the next few weeks. In contrast with the growing international interest in Sri Lanka's airports, Sri Lanka Airlines has failed to attract investment, with Aviation Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva revealing that the government has not secured a suitable investor for the national carrier.
අපට බැයිද නැවතත් එමිරේට්ස් වගේ සමාගමක් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා කටයුතු කරන්න බැයිද? මේ පිළිබඳ සාකච්ඡාවක් පවත්වලා තියෙනවද?
ලෝකයේ තියෙන කොම ගුවන් සමාගම්
We have invited several international airlines. However, so far we have only received 6 responses. Further, none of those 6 respondents are suitable partners. The reason for this state of affairs is that there isn't a great deal of interest in purchasing an airline such as this.
We hear that there is going to be another consortium of local companies who might bid. Is there any update on that?
No, we would like to see a Sri Lankan entrepreneur or a consortium of Sri Lankan entrepreneurs buy this Sri Lankan airline. We are waiting. We are prepared to help them. But nobody has firmly come forward.
That they are trying to pre-qualify some people.
We have pre-qualified, but they must show the finances. They must show their ability to run this airline.
Has the pre-qualifying been approved by cabinet yet?
No, not yet. It has been further evaluated.
A few days back, Tourism Minister mentioned giving the control of a few of the airports in in Sri Lanka, including the Katunayaka airport, to certain entities from India.
We are going to hand over the Mattala airport to a Russian and Indian consortium. We have called for expression of interest. Several people bid. The best bid was selected. I think within another few weeks' time, we'll be able to hand over that airport, which is running at a loss of 3 billion a year.
On this Indian-Russian consortium for Mattala airport, we hear that the Russian partner is owned by a person who is sanctioned by US Treasury.
No, that is not correct. We have checked that. True. It's only a rumor.
In your airport, the Japanese suspended the contract now that the restructuring has been signed. What is the process?
Next week, the JICA is coming to see me. They are prepared to immediately start the project.
So you have to sign a new agreement?
We have to sign a new agreement. They will come to negotiate.
According to our debt restructuring agreement with Japan, the contract must be given to a Japanese company. We will call tenders from Japanese companies and select a new contractor. That contract has been terminated. The former contractor is free to submit a bid alongside all the others. We will select the company that offers the best price.
Chinese
There have been several Chinese companies that have shown interest. However, we are under an obligation to give the contract to a Japanese company. Commissioner General of Excise M.J. Gunasiri stated that the Excise Department has successfully collected 105 billion rupees in revenue in the first 5 months of the year, marking a significant increase of 17 billion rupees compared to the same period last year. According to Gunasiri, the department achieved its revenue target by the end of June, experiencing a nearly 20% growth compared to last year. However, Gunasiri highlighted that the department initially anticipated revenue growth of 20 billion rupees in the first half of the year, but fell short due to natural disasters and issues at a major production plant in the country. Now, Japan has issued its first new banknotes in 2 decades, featuring 3-dimensional portraits of the founders of financial and female education institutes in an attempt to frustrate counterfeiters. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida today stated that the redesigned 10,000, 5,000 and 1,000 yen bills pay tribute to Japanese capitalism, women's equality and scientific innovation. The bills feature holograms of historical figures whose orientation changes depending on the angle they are viewed at, which Japanese authorities say is a world first. Meanwhile, authorities plan to print about 7.5 billion newly designed bills by the end of the current fiscal year, swelling the 18.5 billion banknotes worth 125 trillion yen in circulation by December 2023. Now, the Colombo bourse closed in the red today, dragged down by losses in counters such as Haley's, Hatton National Bank and Melster Corp. By the end of trading, turnover was 1.5 billion rupees, down from yesterday's 1.8 billion. The CSE All-Share Index closed 0.67% lower at 12,037 points, while the S&P SL20 also fell 0.85% to 3,543 points. Trading volume on the index increased to 79.2 million shares from 61.7 million shares in the previous session. The utilities sector was the top contributor to market turnover, with the banking sector coming in second. Foreign investors remained active, closing as net buyers. Now up next, we have Minal Wickremege from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
During the period from June 24th to June 28, 2024, crude oil prices exhibited a mixed performance. Overall, Brent prices increased by $1.75 per barrel and WTI prices increased by $1.63 per barrel. The AWPLR for the week ending June 28 decreased by 31 basis points to 8.78% compared to the previous week. Looking at the government revenue side of things, government revenue and grants for the 3 months ending March 2024 increased to $916.2 billion compared to $635.3 billion in the corresponding period of 2023. Total expenditure and net lending from January to March 24 decreased to $1.2 trillion compared to $1.26 trillion in the corresponding period of 2023. Consequently, the overall budget deficit for the period from January to March 2024 decreased to $281.3 billion compared to $624.8 billion recorded in the corresponding period of 2023.
Now let's take a look at the rupee exchange rate for the day. Now in corporate news, DFCC Bank said it allocated 500 million rupees to finance smallholder dairy farmers in an effort to boost the local dairy industry. And with that, here's a look at more corporate news in brief.
DFCC Bank allocated 500 million rupees to finance smallholder dairy farmers in line with its commitment to supporting sustainable development. This initiative aims to provide support to the sector under concessionary interest rates, fostering growth at grassroots level, particularly among smallholder dairies. The move further demonstrates a substantial finance investment into the dairy sector and highlights the bank's focus on critical industries with the potential for significant economic and social impact in the country. Chairman of Pegasus Hotels of Ceylon PLC, M. Dayananda, says that the company enters the next year with a relentless focus on performing and to support the industry's recovery efforts. In its annual report for the financial year 2023-24, Dayananda stated that the company remains steadfast on continuous service improvements, resource building and optimizing value for the entire spectrum of their guests. Also in corporate, Renuka Foods PLC disclosed that Dr. S.R. Rajia and I.R. Rajia, who serve as the executive chairman and executive deputy chairperson of the company, purchased 8,996,573 ordinary voting shares at 14 rupees each. In its disclosure, the company added that the relevant transaction was notified to the board of directors on the 28th of June this year.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. We'll join you tomorrow at the same time. Thank you and have a good night.